As the riders of the Swann Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship arrive in Winton, the championship battles in the support categories are heating up. In the FX Ninja 300 Cup, it's the experienced Paul Young fighting off a pack of young guns. Masri, Dawes, Ford, Jones and White are all still within a shot of the title. How will these young talents fare on the technical Winton Raceway? In the Formula Oz category, it's all about the Irishman Paul Byrne. After a dominant season so far, Byrne will get his first chance to clinch the title this weekend. The combination of Pro Twins naked bikes and the C&D grade superbikes has led to an exciting field of motorcycles with plenty of action on track. Bo Beaton and his dominant Vincent 1600 are leading the Pro Twins class, whilst Brendan McIntyre is showing great pace on the Western Motorcycles Sydney Suzuki GSX R1000 all year long. Welcome to round 6, the penultimate round of the Australasian Superbike Championship. It's a beautiful day here at Winton Motor Raceway, and this is the penultimate round in the Kawasaki Insurance Ninja Cup for 300cc motorcycles. And what a year it's been so far. Paul Young, the old stager if you like, wealth of experience, has certainly been showing the young guys how it's all done. Joining me in commentary is Phil Harlem, and I guess you could not ask for a better day's activity so far.
No, it's been a fantastic day so far. It's been a fantastic season, Lance. I can't wait for these three races to get underway. But as you said, Paul Young has been the star of the day, but there's so many young guys that are really making their presence felt. As you can see, Paul Young leads the championship, but Ryan Masri's had a couple of really good rounds. So has Jack Dawes, who led the championship at one stage this year, and young Hunter Ford, well, he certainly has burst onto the scene in season 2015.
Well, theoretically and mathematically, any one of those top six can still take it out. We have three races today, 7 laps each, 3 kilometres, so 21 kilometres per race, if you like, 63 in total. And then, of course, in early December, we head to the home of motorsport in Sydney Motorsport Park for the final round. So Young, he is our pole sitter. Alongside of him will start Ben White, Robbie Menzies and Jack Dawes. On row 2, we have Jimmy Broadbent, Tony Jones, Ryan Masri, Jason Martin, Hunter Ford, Bryce Van Hoof on positions 9 and 10, and they're on the inside of the third row. So we're in the starters' hands now. Wait for the lights to go out. 7 laps. Oh, a bit of a jump start there by Paul Young by the looks of it, our pole sitter, and that has balked the man on the second row of the grid. But look at Paul Young now. He's back in 6th, 7th, 8th placing going into the first turn.
Yeah, he certainly jumped the start and didn't make any real effort to try and get off the line there, as has cost him twice, because he will get a jump start penalty as well, as this massive field of Ninja 300 stream their way through. But look at the Cube Racing duo of Robbie Menzies and Jason Martin. They're up into positions 2 and 3, Lance, off to a flying start on board those immaculately prepared machines out of Ben Henry's stable.
Well, it looks like it's Jack Dawes that is that's out in front as we hop on board with Bryce Van Hoof at the moment, currently back there in 8th place. And you can see Paul Young and a couple of the others there battling it out, trying to make up for lost ground early on. So out of the race tech sweeper, the long left-hander that leads down into the W section, the Kawasaki S's, as it's known here at Winton Motor Raceway, and you can see these nimble little 300s are battling it out at the front of the pack.
Yeah, into the Kawasaki S's, on board the Kawasaki with Bryce Van Hoof. Great to see Bryce back in Australia and racing after, having a year off motorcycles last year and a couple of years prior to that overseas. But Paul Young trying to make his way back through the field on board bike number 310. And doing a pretty good job of it at the moment, but he has certainly dominated all of the races that he's finished in this class so far in season 2015, but he's got a lot of work to do in this one, Lance, because these young fellas at the front, they're not going to be hanging around waiting for the most experienced campaigner out there to catch up and show them a thing or two.
Well, Jack Dawes it is that's leading at the moment. Somebody trying very hard back there is our series runner-upper at the moment, and that is, of course, young Ryan Masri on board machine number 307. He's in 3rd placing at the moment as they stream down the Swann Insurance main straight to complete lap number 1 of 7.
Well, across the start-finish line now, on board with Bryce Van Hoof, and pulls out of the slipstream. That is a textbook example of how to get past in this field where the bikes are so evenly matched, and that's a textbook example of how to get back on the brakes.
Well, it's more a bit of nah. Whatever you can do, I can do better. Inside, outside, doesn't matter. Look at these guys backing it in as they come down the hill and into Bell Helmets. It's a very tricky part of the circuit here, but these lightweight, nimble little 300s are certainly agile, and they certainly need to maintain that corner speed. It's all important, Phil, especially when they come out of here and head down towards Race Tech, this long sweeping left-hander.
Yeah, that was a great example there of how tight the racing is in this class, because the bikes are so evenly matched. And as you can see, getting up on the brakes is one of the best ways to try and make an overtaking opportunity. Run your competitor a fraction wide and then get the drive out of the corner. And we could see there the man from Western Sydney on board bike number 308. On board that Kellen Kawasaki, Ben White, involved in a pretty titanic struggle at the moment. And Ryan Masri, don't you love the way that he gets those elbows out when he's going around those corners?
Yes, Hunter Ford just in front of him. Here we have a replay of the start, and look at that, uncharacteristic of Paul Young. Jimmy Broadbent getting balked there as we were on board. We almost had I guess you could say a front guard named by the man, our pole sitter, Paul Young.
Well, I'm just trying to think back, Lance. I can never remember Paul Young actually jumping the start of a motorcycle race. He's got so much experience to be doing it for so long and make such a big error on the first race of the day is very un-Paul Youngish. And here comes Ben White up the inside of Jack Dawes, our race leader. Oh, that's a fantastic overtaking manoeuvre. I think he's been watching Wayne Maxwell in the Superbike class, because that's one of his favourite overtaking opportunities here at Winton, the entry to the Kawasaki S's.
Well, on board the Kawasaki, he made it as wide as a 1000cc Superbike and certainly pushed his way through the inside in a very clean and professional manner. Down the Iphone straight into turn number 10 we go, and Jack Dawes is not going to take that. Oh! I was going to say not take that one laying down, but he has. He's laid it right down there, losing the front end under the brakes. He's okay, a little bit shaken and stirred. The bike looks like it's okay, and he should be able to get back into the race as quickly as possible.
Well, a great example of the robustness of the Ninja 300 there. He's able to pick the bike up and get going again, as we see Paul Young trying to work his way back through the field. Unfortunately, Lance, it's the law of diminishing returns now, isn't it? He's overtaken a few competitors, but every one you overtake, it just gets that little bit harder to come back. But there's the replay of Jack Dawes. Just went in a little bit too hard on the brakes and unfortunately lost the front end of his yellow Ninja.
Yes, bad luck for the youngster, but he's certainly up and okay. We're on board with him now as we see a replay of it. And as you say, the robustness of these Kawasaki Ninja 300s has certainly come to the fore there, as we've now got a battle on our hands for the race lead. Well, at least on track, on paper, Paul Young goes up the inside of Ben White. He assumes the responsibility of being our front runner. Now all he needs to do is finish 15 seconds in front and he'll take the points.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be extremely easy. Not in this class, I don't think, with Ben White, one of the companions that's been able to really take it to Paul Young all year. And we can see there, perfect example of the slipstream in the latter half of the straight. Big move on the brakes, and Paul Young now has got a bit of work to do. And he even has the audacity, Lance, to give him a wave as he goes past.
I don't know whether that was thank you for opening up the door or ha-ha, I've got you this time round. I've learnt a few tricks over the season so far. Thanks very much for coming, Paul Young. But Paul, he'll have a big smile on his face, and he'll get a deep sense of satisfaction out of seeing someone like Paul, Ben White in front of him. Oh! Talking about that, off he goes down into the boondocks. Paul Young has to take evasive action, gets up out of the saddle, onto the foot pegs there, has a look over to see where everybody else is. He'll rejoin the race as quickly as he can, and unfortunately that's brought a red flag situation out, as Ben White, I beg your pardon, is being looked after. You can see again, he just unloaded the front end of that bike, and unfortunately it looks like he's been rendered a little bit unconscious by the way that his head is slapped onto the tarmac there. In fact, Paul Young off screen there has gone back around to render assistance, and that is certainly very good of him.
Well, ready for a restart now by the look of it, and we get ready to go. Much better start for Paul Young in this race. No jump start worries in that one. Looks like Tony Jones has got off to a great start on the inside on the Black Ninja bike number 312. Ryan Masri squeezes it up the inside, runs Tony Jones wide. Oh, that's a big move from Ryan Masri in the first corner of this restarted race.
Well, at least everybody's got through the first two turns at the end of the Swann Insurance main straight, up over the top of the Berwick Leathers top straight through DID chains and down into Bell Helmets for lap number 1 on this restart.
I just noticed Craig White, one of our leading FOB competitors there, shaking his head, shaking his fist, and I don't know what got wrong, but he's still going in this race, so I'm not sure what the problem was there into those first corners for Craig White on board bike number 340. But back to the front now. Look at this stream of ninjas making their way down in towards the Kawasaki S's. Great battles all the way back through the pack, as we've come to expect. There's Jack Dawes back up, out and running in this class. As we said, had that little crash in the opening stanza, but he's back on the gas now and just ahead of Bryce Van Hoof on board the Kawasaki Ninja 300 Cup, the Kawasaki Insurance Machine, guest riding this weekend.
So out of the last of the W shapes of the Kawasaki S's, and for the run down the Iphone back straight, heading into the turn that Jack Dawes knows only too well. This is where he lost the front end in the initial staging of this race. He's back up on track. Unlike some of them, they're taking it to the dirt. Throttle wide open, keeps the power to the ground and manages to get it back onto the black stuff.
Yeah, well, the lap times may be a little bit slower than what we can expect in the Superbike class, Lance, but I think what you can see there is the desperation, and these guys are riding right on the ragged edge for the entire race distance, and the battles back in the pack show that it doesn't matter if you're coming first or second or 21st or 22nd, it is a real good battle wherever you go, and that overtaking manoeuvre on the front straight once again by Jason Martin on 387, textbook slipstreaming of Brian Masri.
Masri, I think, there was a little bit shocked and bewildered. He wasn't really expecting that, as we're now on board with Jack Dawes going up over the top of the Berwick Leathers top straight, the old start-finish line here at the Winton Motor Raceway before the Grand Prix extension was built, and down into Dunlop for the last time as he lines himself up for the long sweeping left-hander.
Yeah, certainly hadn't lost any aggression with that early step-off down into the start of the Kawasaki S's now. It is Robbie Menzies on 377, the young Queenslander, the man that grew up cutting his teeth on motocross bikes and is now being mentored by the 3-time World Superbike champion Troy Bayliss. And isn't Troy Bayliss doing a fantastic job with this young man who is, I'd say, the perfect stature for Kawasaki Insurance Ninja 300 Cup racing?
Yes, he's doing a great job to mentor the youngster, and Jimmy Broadbent is doing equally as good a job on board this bike at the moment as he heads down the Iphone back straight for the last time. Into turn number 9. And it is going to go right down to the wire for all of these, using up all of the racetrack, up over the rumble strips and down the Dunlop back straight into turns 11 and 12.
Hasn't Tony Jones come back a lot in this last lap too? I wouldn't be surprised to see his last lap, one of his faster laps of the race as well, as they make their way down now and through the final corner. Robbie Menzies will should take the race win on the road, because Paul Young's going to still have to deal with that jump start penalty.
Yes, with Paul Young finishing first, it doesn't mean that he has finished first. Unfortunately, he greeted the checkered flag ahead of everybody else, but of course, with the penalty that he gets, he finishes up in 9th placing. Robbie Menzies, Tony Jones, Jason Martin, your top 3. Jimmy Broadbent, Ryan Masri, Jack Dawes, Shane Yockham, Hunter Ford, Paul Young and Bryce Van Hoof round up the top 10.
Unfortunately, there was a crash and we had to do a rerun, but it was good. I got a good start, and unfortunate for Youngie, he got stepped back, but yeah, it was a good race.
It was a tough one, especially with the 2-race part. Didn't have quite enough fuel, but we managed to still pull it off, so yeah.
Well, race 2 in the Kawasaki Insurance Ninja Cup was certainly spectacular. Here are some highlights of it. Paul Young, starting off the 3rd row of the grid, was the man that had it all to do after his jump start in race number 1. It wasn't long before he got through the jostling and bustling of turns 1 and 2, and in fact by turn number 3 he assumed the race lead.
Yeah, clear air for Paul Young now as he goes through the turn number 3 DID change. But Tony Jones was very keen to take it up to him early, as was Ryan Masri. No surprise there. Ryan Masri had the elbows out early and was ready for a good fight.
Well, it wasn't long before Paul Young made every post a winner, and he extended his race lead there. He has approximately 1/3 of the length of the Swann Insurance main straight, and that left this quartet battling it out for the minor placings.
Yeah, as always in Kawasaki Insurance Ninja 300 Cup racing, a few riders succumb to the pressure. Hunter Ford, as always though, very keen to have a bit of a look behind and see who's coming quickly.
This quartet battling it out for second place in no uncertain terms, trying very hard down the end of the Swann Insurance main straight. But unfortunately for the Cube Racing's Jason Martin, he came all unstuck and he made good use of the Yamaha air fence.
Yes, the air fence doing its job once again, but that wasn't the only Cube Racing rider that was having a red hot go in this race. Robbie Menzies on board bike number 377 took victory in the first race, and he was on track for a good result in the second. But Paul Young took the checkered flag, and normal service has been resumed, taking the victory over Tony Jones, Robbie Menzies, Jack Dawes, Ryan Masri, Jimmy Broadbent, second in our under-20s, or third in our under-20s Cup, Hunter Ford, Jake Pettigrew, Ryan Sellon and Bryce Van Hoof rounds out the top 10.
So it is that we now take you to race number 3, 7 more laps, 21 kilometres, and everybody got off to a reasonably good start. Paul Young taking good advantage of being in pole position as we take our onboard shots from Jimmy Broadbent down the end of the Swann Insurance main straight and into turns 1 and 2.
It's been a fantastic second half of the season for Jimmy Broadbent, who has, last year came from being the tyre fitter to the team to this year being a red-hot championship challenger, or for race wins anyway, as Jack Dawes leads them through DID chains on this first lap. Look at the battles. Look how close it is in this Kawasaki Insurance Ninja 300 Cup. It's certainly been one of the most exciting classes of season 2015, Lance.
On board with the South Australian Kawasaki BC performance entry of Jimmy Broadbent, and yes, to answer your question, it has been one of the most exciting categories to be introduced into this, the Swann Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship, especially in 2015. Look at the way that they're all over the shop as they head down into the Kawasaki S's.
Paul Young just seems to be able to put that motorcycle anywhere on the track at any given time. Sitting in second place at the moment, though, on board the SA Motorcycles BC Performance Machine. There you go, Exhibit A, just done there by Paul Young on the entry down onto the iPone straight. Just managed to shoehorn the bike up the inside of Jack Dawes, and Robbie Menzies trying to go with them as well. Look at Jack Dawes getting it sideways down into the corner. It's got the big Dr. Drift sign on the side, Lance, so that's what he thought he'd do.
Well, according to Paul Young, as we mentioned earlier, it's rather uncharacteristic of him to jump the start. It's only the second ever time in his career that he did that in race number 1, and he's made every post a winner in race 2, taking an emphatic victory. Race number 3, as we see live now, you can see the gap that he's already opened up as he heads down the Swann Insurance main straight, ahead of Jack Dawes and Robbie Menzies in third.
And as Paul Young said, these motorcycles require a completely different riding style and technique to any other motorcycles being ridden here this weekend. He said you need to be on the gas before the apex. So he's doing the best job at the moment of employing that style. But look at the young fellas behind. There is a lot of under-20 riders that are in this battle at the moment. And there's one of the most exciting men, Ryan Masri, on board bike number 307, the Aitkins Power Equipment Machine. Love the way he gets those elbows out. And you can tell that he might have done a little bit of motocross in his early days.
Well, his father, Jim, used to do his racing with his mouth. It looks like his son has picked it up with body language.
Oh, I don't think that he stopped just because he's not racing anymore. There's Jim Masri, but look at this on-track, on-board action now, back on board with Jimmy Broadbent. As we said, having a fantastic second half of the year is Jimmy on board the 365 machine. He's got Hunter Ford right behind him, one of the men that well and truly made his presence felt at earlier rounds this year. And Tony Jones on board bike number 312. He has been probably the standout rider that's been up there in every race this year, but unfortunately he's just had a small amount of bad luck, which has really kept him out of the championship challenge.
It's only been bad luck because he's been trying that 150%, not 110%. He's been trying so darn hard. You could see that there in a descriptive manner, trying to go round the outside. Here we are, a replay on board with Jimmy Broadbent. You can see that everybody wants to get down into that Swann Insurance, at the end of the Swann Insurance main straight first. And it's Paul Young that makes every post a winner there, going around the outside and assuming the race lead. Jack Dawes doing a great job early on in the race as well. But you can see Paul Young just decided to slot himself up the inside in that emphatic manoeuvre on the exit of the Kawasaki S's and the run down the iPone back straight.
Well, we keep saying about Paul Young, but the simple fact is, Lance, that he does so much riding. Oh, Tony Jones around the outside of Jack Dawes. There was nothing in that. I think there might be some yellow paint from Jack Dawes' machine all over the side of Tony Jones' motorcycle and leathers as they make their way through the Kawasaki S's. And look who's looming up from behind, Hunter Ford. Oh, he's the young man from the Newcastle region. Hasn't that region produced some fantastic riders over the years? And he's about to get well and truly involved in this battle.
Well, Jack Dawes there, as you can see, in 5th place at the moment. It is Robbie Menzies that's doing the job out in front ahead of Ryan Masri. Then we have Tony Jones, followed through then by Hunter Ford, and one more rider coming up to the back of it there to join in and make it 5.
Well, Robbie Menzies has been doing a great job. Remember, he broke his collarbone at the first round this year, Lance.
Yes.
His first ever outing in this class. I think it was the first race on the Saturday program. He didn't even make it through to Sunday, and he certainly has come on in leaps and bounds in this class. As we said, he's got the perfect stature for riding these bikes. He's got a great mentor in his corner as well, and he's also got a great team behind him, the Cube Racing outfit. Those bikes look fantastic, and look at that move from Tony Jones. That was fantastic.
Oh, wow, what an effort that was to get up the inside of Ryan Masri at the end of the fastest section of the circuit, at the end of the Swann Insurance main straight. Masri, look at his body language now. He's got his body well and truly up over the front end of that little Kawasaki. He looks a little bit more like a praying mantis the way that he's stalking the front end of that bike. Here's a replay going down through into the Kawasaki S's, and I think that was Jones going around the outside of Jack Dawes and dusting him up in no uncertain terms. A replay here now of Tony Jones going up the inside of Ryan Masri at the end of the Swann Insurance main straight.
Yeah, I don't think that was the quickest lap and a half from Tony Jones, but it was certainly the most exciting. And the more that these guys battle, the more chance there is that Jimmy Broadbent, or actually I was going to say could be catching up from behind. Looks like he may have just dropped off a fraction. In fact, Tony Jones looked like he'd even jumped out to a little bit of a lead. I think he's made a mistake on the exit of the corner there at the end of Ipone, and Robbie Menzies is now back up into this lead group, or into the lead of this group, as Hunter Ford goes back 2 positions because he ran wide at the penultimate corner.
He certainly did. 3 wide as they headed down Dunlop Straight into that second last corner. Now the run down the Swann Insurance main straight. Everybody's starting to behave themselves a little bit towards the latter stages of this event. But our race leader, Paul Young, you get a sniff of him every now and then. You get a flash of him in the screen in one corner. He's got the whole length of the main straight in front of everybody else.
Yes, the steely glaze of Paul Young as he makes his way out of the Kawasaki S's for the final time and down the Ipone Straight. An extremely comfortable lead, and our championship leader coming into this round has certainly done nothing wrong to set himself up for a great finale at the final round at Sydney Motorsport Park on the 4th and 5th of December. He's been untouchable when he hasn't jumped the start so far this weekend, Lance, and he's got an incredible lead now. But the real interest is this battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th place. That's going to be decided as they come through these corners for the final time.
Well, if Kelvin Riley of SA Kawasaki BC Performance team principal, or one of the 2 team principals, is correct, Paul Young with this victory could well take out the championship. They'll have the abacuses out at the end of this doing all of their cross-checking, etc., but we may well have just crowned another champion. Paul Young ahead of Robbie Menzies, Tony Jones, Jack Dawes, Ryan Masri, Hunter Ford, Jimmy Broadbent, Shane Yockham, Bryce Van Hoof and Jake Pettigrew rounds up our top 10.
Robbie Menzies, Tony Jones and Jack Dawes, Lance, all setting their fastest lap on the last lap of that race.
Absolutely fantastic, and the results have been building in all classes, across the Superbike, Super Sport, and on the 300, and SA Motorcycles and BC Performance and all the other sponsors that help the team out. Put a wonderful group of people together, and they're kicking goals, so it's good to bring them a championship if that's what I've done.
I'm hoping to go through the next round with no crashes and keep it upright and get it on the box. We've had a great year so far. I mean, my first round was a bit dodgy with me coming off and breaking my collarbone, but other than that, we've had a great year and we've had good results, so couldn't be happier.
Well, as we head into the final round at Sydney Motorsport Park in early December, Paul Young has a commanding lead over Ryan Masri, Tony Jones, Jack Dawes, Hunter Ford, Ben White rounding up the top 6, but the minor placings are certainly on in earnest. Don't go too far away, folks. We may have seen the last of the Kawasaki Ninja Cup from today, but all the action of the Formula Oz coming on the other side of this break. Welcome back to our continued coverage of the support categories of this, the 6th round of the Swann Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship of 2015. Formula Oz coming your way. The Race Tech Formula Oz class has been sensational throughout the year. Bo Beaton has been dominant so far this weekend, but it's all been Paul Byrne throughout season 2015.
Paul Byrne on the LTR Honda Lands has had a fantastic season. As you can see there, he has got a championship lead of over 100 points over Simon Galloway, the 3 times Pro Twin champion that steps up to Formula Oz for this year, and also Mitch Painter, who unfortunately can't be here this weekend, but still holds down 3rd place in the championship.
A fantastic effort for young Mitch Painter to be able to come on board that 1000cc bike and do so well in this, his initial, I guess you could say, initiation for the Formula Oz category. So the riders making their way around for race number 1 of 3 scheduled 7-lap journeys here at Winton Motor Raceway. And as we mentioned before, Bo Beaton doing a fantastic job to secure pole position. Ben Henry, Paul Byrne and Brad Swallow will start on the front row.
Yeah, great to see Liam Wilkinson back on board the Yamaha as well. Simon Galloway, Kenny Redding, all on Yamahas back on that second row of the grid. But the man that all eyes are on at the moment is Bo Beaton on board the Racer's Edge Panigale R. He starts from pole position. Right next to him, his great adversary, Ben Henry, on board the Cube Racing machine. And our championship leader, Paul Byrne, who's had bike dramas once again this weekend. Peter Ward's been working incredibly hard to try and get the bike sorted. And he starts from that front row of the grid. He's in 3rd place as they go through the first corner for the first time. But look at Liam Wilkins. He's got a great start on board bike number 34, and he's up into 4th place.
As they head into DID change for the first time, that number 34 has only done a few laps of Adelaide. And I'm talking about the streets of Adelaide to run the bike in before it came over here. And now he's on in earnest, doing a great job. Kenny Redding also on the Yamalube YRD entry is making a welcome comeback to racing in Australia.
Yeah, had the imposing figure of SA Motorcycles, Evan Biles, right in front of him, also doing double duty this weekend. Evan in the Superbike and Formula Oz classes. But tell you what, Paul Dutton, great to see him back after the last round at Wakefield Park where he destroyed that brand new motorcycle. It's all painted up, looks immaculate, and he's back on the pace on board the Ultra Spray machine. And there he is, involved in a pretty hectic battle at the moment with, he's at the Kubota Honda right behind him of bike number 74.
Plenty of action throughout the entire field, as you can see. A fairly large quantity of riders here in the Formula Oz class as this race continues on down Dunlop and Ben Henry. He's thwarting the efforts of Paul Byrne, our championship leader, but it's all about Bo Beaton doing a great job on the Racer's Edge Performance Ducati Panigale out in front.
Yeah, the Panigale R. Ever since Bo Beaton first jumped on that motorcycle earlier on this year, the Queensland round was where he really started to concentrate his development on that particular motorcycle as Paul Byrne runs it wide down into turn 1, just got in there a fraction too hot. Oh, Paul, you've got a 100-point championship lead. You've just got to make sure you finish races and get points. And looks over his shoulder as he comes back onto the track, and all he can see is a swarming pack of Formula Oz riders making their way through turns 1 and 2.
Talking about people backing it in, Brad Swallow there as he came up over the top of Berwick Leathers straight and into DID chains there. The number 22 Kawasaki was sideways in no uncertain terms. Here is some great action with Liam Wilkinson now under pressure from the Lockie Thomas Racing Honda mounted Paul Byrne as they head down into the Kawasaki S's for another lap.
Yeah, it's great to see Liam Wilkinson back. As we said, change of machinery. He rode the Aprilia earlier on in this season, but now back on board the Yamaha, getting ready for a big endurance race in Adelaide in the coming weeks is Liam Wilkinson. That bike looks absolutely immaculate, and he looks like he's riding it pretty well, but we've seen riders come out on these brand new Yamahas, Lance, and they've been fast straight away. Remember Darren Wilbo at Eastern Creek a couple of rounds ago.
Well, Liam, talking to him in the pits earlier on today, and in fact throughout yesterday in the Saturday program, as we're on board with the Protector Print entry, and you can see that Paul Byrne just managed to slipstream him at the end of Dunlop up the inside and takes up the running of second place. Just getting back to that point I was making about Liam, I said to him, how are you going on that Yamaha? And he said, well, it's just a bike that you can sit on and ride right from the get-go.
Yeah, the Aprilia was an extremely hard beast to try and tame. Had so much horsepower that came on so violently that he actually went back to riding the earlier model. As we get a replay of the start now on board with Liam Wilkinson. Yes, you can see he's got a fantastic start on board the Protector Print machine, and he blasts up the outside of Ben Henry. Couldn't quite get around the outside though. Ben Henry and Paul Byrne, how tight was it through there on turn number 1?
On board the Ultra Spray entry of Paul Dutton as he takes off from the start line up into about 6th placing. He gets a good run up the inside, but then look at the legs that are out there.
I think that was Kenny Redding, almost Valentino Rossi style.
Oh, I think it was more reminiscent of a speedway rider ready to lock it up. Here's a replay of Paul Byrne just getting it all wrong at the end of the Swann Insurance Main Straight. Did a good job to avoid the Marshalls flag point there, and indeed not needing to use the Yamaha air fence, and here he is slipstreaming down the back straight, the Dunlop straight, into turn number 11 and overtaking Liam Wilkinson for second place.
Yeah, that was a pretty good move from Paul Byrne, considering, as I said, they've had plenty of dramas with the number one bike. He's essentially got the suspension out of the number one bike in the wet bike this weekend. Completely standard engine, none of the special kit internals in the special Peter Ward built engine that is in the number one bike. Hopefully they'll have that rocket ship Honda CBR 1000 ready for the final round at Eastern Creek. But this weekend, Paul Byrne on the naked bike. There's another Honda that's going very well. Scott McGregor on the Kubota machine, having a titanic struggle there with SA Motorcycles. Evan Biles on board his Kawasaki ZX-10.
Evan Biles loves his bike. He loves his racing. He's certainly a man with a smile on his dial, no matter what's happening there.
Maybe not so much now.
Well, he'll have a smile on his face. He knows
he will now.
He made the mistake. He went a little bit wide, and he'll be kicking himself internally there, I'm sure. And he came back with a vengeance. Here is Brad Swallow trying now to take it up to Liam Wilkinson for third placing.
Well, Brad Swallow has done a great job since he jumped on this Kawasaki ZX-10. I think it was the Queensland Round Lance where he had to go on this bike for the first time, and doing double duty this weekend in the Super Sport class on his ZX6 and in Formula Oz on board the big ZX-10. But he's certainly enjoying. He said ZX6 feels a little bit tame now when he gets back on it after riding this fire-breathing machine. Of course, a brand new Kawasaki ZX-10 rumoured to be ready very shortly for season 2016.
Well, let's hope he's got plenty of fairings available, because he's needed them throughout season 2015.
Not just fairings, brakes, clutch, pegs, the whole lot of it. And he goes up the inside, but that's the style that we love to see. Brad Swallow ever on the edge, and he's making his way round Winton and up into third place at the moment. So he's up onto the podium, Lance, just got him past Liam Wilkinson.
Yes, a replay here as he exited the S's at the end of the Swann Insurance main straight, up over the top of the Berwick Leathers top straight and into DID Chains corner sideways. Managed to maintain that momentum. Here's a replay off Liam Wilkinson's view.
Actually, he's got one more position to go if he wants to get up onto the podium. That was for fourth place, just getting ahead of Liam Wilkinson. But you can hear the cross-plane crank engine of that Yamaha on that onboard replay.
Well, here they are now, coming through turns 11 and 12. We're ready for the run down the pit straight, the main straight, the Swann Insurance main straight. And Brad Swallow is certainly pulling away now from Liam Wilkinson.
Well, the man that we have not seen much of in this race, because he has cleared out to a fantastic lead by just over 4 seconds as we start this final lap, is Bo Beaton on board the Racer's Edge Performance. Craig McMartin Racing, North Coast V Twins, Panigale R, the bike that was lovingly handcrafted earlier on this year by Craig McMartin for himself, but Bo's taken such a liking to it. Bo's comment at the beginning of the weekend was, I don't think Craig's getting this one back.
Well, I think he'll have a titanic struggle on his hands. There's no doubt about that, as we're on board with Liam Wilkinson on this final lap of the Race Tech Formula Oz. Race number 1 of 3 at this 6th and penultimate round of the Swann Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship, coming to you from Winton Motor Raceway.
Well, the one thing you can always say about Liam Wilkinson's bike is that they always look $1 million, don't they, Lance, as he makes his way through the Kawasaki S's now. Brand new motorcycle. Look how good the bike looks out there on track. Great paint job. The bike looks to be behaving itself very, very well. And Liam's doing a great job on board a brand new motorcycle to, we'll keep up with Brad Swallow, who's had quite a few rounds now to get used to this, fire-breathing Kawasaki ZX-10. But checkered flag for Bo Beaton, another race victory by 4.3 seconds over Ben Henry on board the Cube Racing Kawasaki.
Yes, a great effort there from the front two runners. This is the battle for the minor placings. Of course, Brad Swallow will finish just ahead of Liam Wilkinson as the checkered flags are waved in earnest.
Confirmation of your results there. Bo Beaton, Ben Henry, Paul Byrne, Brad Swallow, Liam Wilkinson rounds out the top 5 with Kenny Redding, Simon Galloway, Paul Dutton, Evan Biles and Scott McGregor, your top 10.
We went a bit quicker than qualifying, so we made a small change. I think we can get it better again, and the boys are doing a great job. Races Edge Performance, North Coast V Twins, Race Dynamics, they're perfect. The bike's working great for us.
You went pretty quick there in that one. 23 low, so that's pretty quick. I don't know if I can go that quick, but hopefully you'll fade a bit by the end of the day. That's my rough plan there.
I could see Bo getting away on the first lap, so I made a bit of a I tried to outbrake Ben into turn 1 and just outbraked myself a little bit, made a bit of a mistake, but one thing's for sure, I won't be making that mistake in the second race.
After a resounding success in race number 1, Bo Beaton took pole position in race number 2. Here are the highlights as Brad Swallow tries to keep that front end somewhere near the deck at the start.
Yeah, with very little success as Bo Beaton leads them through the Swann Insurance S's for the first time, but Paul Byrne got off to a much better start and was ready to challenge Bo Beaton for the race victory.
And our defending champion, if you like, on the board, the number 46, the new Yamaha mounted Simon Galloway, doing a good job to lead the rest of the pack in third place. And Liam Wilkinson trying very hard, as too was Brad Swallow. That was for the minor placings.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier on about Liam Wilkinson and how good he's been going on the motorcycle as he made a move up the inside of Brad Swallow there to move forward one further position. But Simon Galloway, this is only his second round on board the new Yamaha YZF R1, the base model machine. But as we can see, they're both going very well.
Yes, and it was Liam Wilkinson that tried very hard indeed, but not for long before Brad Swallow went round the outside, tried just that little bit too hard. Oh dear, another fairing needed.
Yeah, unfortunately for Brad Swallow on the flip and flow machine, he flipped when he should have flowed, Lance, and he's down and out once again.
But it was all about Bo Beaton, 2 from 2, and he finished strongly ahead of Paul Byrne in second place, and Ben Henry taking out the final podium position.
The Craig Martin Racing Races Edge Performance, look, I can't think of enough. The bike's getting better and better as the day goes on. It's getting quite hot out there now, and the Pirelli tyres seem to be putting up with it. I'm giving them everything I got, so true credit to them as well.
Well, with 2 consecutive victories under his belt, Bo Beaton was shooting for a three-peat in race number 3. Here are the highlights. Paul Byrne getting away very strongly indeed. But Beaton it was that led for the early stages of the race.
Yeah, Ben Henry once again got a great start to slot up into third position. Liam Wilkinson and the ever-present Simon Galloway, the man that's had a great season this year, right on his tail in fifth.
Well, Ben Henry trying very hard. He's finished third in both occasions, and Paul Byrne in second on both occasions so far today. And Bo Beaton certainly wanted to bring home that Panigale in no uncertain terms. But Paul Byrne, he wasn't over and done with. He wanted to try and get that victory in the last race.
Yeah, he's looking very pumped up in the last race and managed to stick to the back of Bo Beaton early in the race like he hadn't been able to do earlier on this weekend. In fact, he took the lead as they went down the Swann Insurance start-finish straight as the Panigale R seemed to slightly slow as they came down that Swann Insurance straight.
Yes, unfortunately for Bo Beaton, that Panigale did succumb to mechanical dramas and was unable to complete the race. As you can see here, going through DID chains, he basically gave up, sat up, and a minor mechanical drama there cost him victory.
What we now know to be a fuel breather issue thwarted the attempt of Bo Beaton and that awesome 1199 R to take a three-peat this weekend, but the final race victory went to our championship leader Paul Byrne on board the LTR Honda.
That was an awesome race for us. Big thanks to Pete and Dave. Worked really hard this weekend to get the bike nearly perfect there now, and it's a credit to them really. And a big shout out to Dunlop there for coming up trumps with a good tyre there in the last one. Just totally transformed our pace through the race, and yeah, really happy to come away one win at least for the guys, you know.
As we take a look at the points now, heading into the final round at Sydney Motorsport Park in early December, Paul Byrne has been crowned your Race Tech Formula Oz champion of 2015. He cannot be beaten by Simon Galloway in second, and rounding up the top 3 is Ben Henry. Don't go too far away, folks, because on the other side of this short break, we'll welcome you back for all the action of the Pro Twins Naked Bikes and C and D grade riders. Well, it's time now to take you to all of the action of the Australian Motorcycle News Pro Twins and Formula Xtreme C and D grade riders and naked bikes as well. It's been a class that has certainly been up and down throughout the year and has some very interesting machines in it, Phil.
Certainly does, and of course no machine any more interesting than the immaculate Irving Vincent 1600cc, the bike they've been developing so far this year. Chris Keane leads the Pro Twins class, Adrian Pierpoint in the naked bikes, and of course the combined Pro Twins and naked Superbike Championship sees that Irving Vincent Racer's Edge performance machine, the bike developed by KH Equipment, leading the class. And of course, Brendan McIntyre leads the C and D grades, Lance, on bike number 22, the Western Motorcycles GSXR 1000.
Well, there are 3 races scheduled here, and this is the highlights of race number 1. The man that you just mentioned, on board machine number 22, the C-grade rider Brendan McIntyre. On board the Western Motorcycles Sydney Suzuki GSXR led the field through turns 1 and 2, but not for long, as that almighty Irving Vincent asserted its authority in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, just boomed its way past on the entry into DID, changed corner for the first time. But look at this battle behind. Jason Martin on board the Cube Racing machine. He's jumped off the Ninja 300 onto the big ZX10, and he's full of venom as he makes his way round through the final 2 corners and looking to have adapted back to the ZX10 pretty well as he tries somewhat to keep the bike in line and fails miserably, but it's oh so good to watch.
It's excellent to watch all of these battles throughout, including Matthew Fife there on board machine number 23. And here you can see Jason Martin taking up the challenge there to Brendan McIntyre at about half race distance as they headed down the Ipone back straight.
Yeah, one of the very few times this year we've actually seen Brendan McIntyre have to play second fiddle, but no one was playing or making this man play second fiddle. Bo Beaton stormed away to an emphatic victory on board that booming Irving Vincent 1600cc machine, took the checkered flag with a massive lead of over 4 seconds over the rest of the field.
The bike's working great, the engine's performing well. The guys at KH Equipment do a fantastic job and the whole team at Irving Vincent, to get the bike out here. And the Australian-made motorbike, what else can you say? It's shown it can hold its own against the Japanese manufacturers.
Here are the highlights of race number 2 of 3 in the Pro Twins Naked Bikes and C&D grade Formula Xtreme category. After an emphatic victory in race number 1, Bo Beaton got a fairly poor start, and it was the man who was runner-up, and that was Brendan McIntyre that took up the running in the early stages.
Yeah, once again, no surprise to see the Western Motorcycles Suzuki GSXR blast off into the lead. But great start from Jason Martin on board bike number 61, and he was ultra keen to take it to our championship leader in the C&D grade class early on in this race. As Matty Fife, great to see him back, was having a whale of a time on board his Aprilia RSV4.
So McIntyre led the field through this long sweeping left-hander about mid-race, and you can see there the dominance of the big booming Vincent as he asserted his authority, got up the inside. Wow, the beautiful sound of that Irving Vincent. You could listen to that all day long as he took up the running of the race.
But the real focus point as they got past those first couple of Lancers was this battle between the 2 C&D grade protagonists. Brendan McIntyre very nearly out of the seat. Jason Martin took the opportunity to do a wheelie, and then it was on in earnest between these two. There was many overtakes in seemingly every corner. Someone was trying to shoehorn it up the inside or right around the outside.
McIntyre had the upper hand at this stage, but it wasn't for long as Jason Martin quite literally put his best foot forward, smoking it up. Not the rear tyre, but his left boot.
Well, they say smoke him if you got him, and that's what Bo Beaton did. He smoked all of them to take another fantastic victory on the booming 1600 KH Equipment Irving Vincent.
Martin finished in second and McIntyre third.
It was pretty tight for me and Brendan again. Yeah, it's really turning out to be a good day. So I had a little moment in the 300 earlier on, but thanks again to Cube Racing, Triple X Rated Suspension, all our team sponsors, and yeah, thank you.
Well, with 2 victories so far today in this class of racing, Bo Beaton assumes pole position ahead of Jason Martin, Brendan McIntyre and Matthew Fife rounding up the front row of the grid.
Yeah, Dane Purcell, Adrian Pierpoint, Brad Conda and Jake Drew back there on that second row of the grid. Great to see Matty Fife back on board his Aprilia and out here this weekend. Oh, was that a jump start from Jason Martin? If it wasn't, it was the most lightning start we've seen so far this weekend, and he'll lead them down into the Swann Insurance S's for the first time, Lance.
Yes, plenty of action in the Swann Insurance S's for the first time. On board with Brad Conda on the YRD Yamaha as they head out of that turn up over the Berwick Leathers top straight and into DID Chains and down towards Dunlop Corner. Of course, Bo Beaton doing double duties here this weekend, has freshly hopped off the Formula Oz bike and is now into this class of racing.
But at the moment, it is Jason Martin on board that Cube racing machine that is leading them all. A merry chase at the moment. And look at the close action there between Bo Beaton and Brendan McIntyre down through the long, fast, bumpy left-hander. Well, the Olin suspension on board that Irving Vincent 1600 would have been working overtime, Lance.
Well, we certainly have confirmation now that Jason Martin, as if we really needed confirmation, has jumped the start and will be given a 15-second penalty. So whilst he may be the race leader on the track, he's certainly not leading the race. It is this man in front of Bo Beaton that is, and that, of course, being the number 22 of Brendan McIntyre on the Western Motorcycle Sydney 7 Friday. Rick Pobjoy Racing Dunlop entry.
Did you see the big late entry there of Adrian Pierpoint on board his Aprilia Tuono V4 as Brendan McIntyre goes up the inside of our, former race leader, but only on the road as Jason Martin comes back. He's not going to take that one lying down. He knows he's got a 15-second jump start penalty and he has to do his best to try and get as far ahead of this field as he can. That's not going to be an easy task when you've got Brendan McIntyre and Bo Beaton lining up behind you.
Yeah, both of them chopping and swapping lines there right in front of the 23 of Matthew Fife, who's doing a fantastic job to get up onto the rear of that pack.
Yeah, James Arnold also in that battle as well on board his Panigale. It's fair to say that he hasn't really been able to shine in a lot of rounds this year because he's had a few niggling machine worries that's really thwarted his attempt as Bo Beaton getting very close to Brendan McIntyre. Oh, don't damage the Irving Vincent. Well, don't damage the Western Motorcycles JSXR either because they both look absolutely immaculate and they're going extremely quick at the moment. But look at Beaton. He's really starting to get into his rhythm now. It's taking him a little while to get into his rhythm in this last race, but he's got the big Irving Vincent rocking and rolling now through the Kawasaki S's.
And there's a great battle right behind him as he goes right round the outside of Jason Martin halfway through the Kawasaki S's. He assumes the race lead now, both on the track and in fact officially, because Martin has that 15-second penalty. So he may be second on the road, but he's not second in the results at this stage. That belongs to Brendan McIntyre. Right behind him, James Arnold, and then Matthew Fife. So that three-way battle is for second, third and fourth in the race.
Well, we've been mentioning about how they've been developing this bike throughout season 2015. Once again, Ken and Barry Horner have showed up with two motorcycles this weekend, Lance. Slightly different steering head angles and slightly different engine specifications in both of those Irving Vincent machines. They've been chopping and changing, trying to find the best combination. Well, whatever they're doing, they should keep it up because the bike has been absolutely flying this weekend. And the way that it rode around the outside of the other riders in those corners shows that the work that they've been doing with Steve Mudford from Race Dynamics has been certainly well spent, and the bike is handling beautifully. There's a replay of the start, and there's a replay of a man getting a 15-second jump start penalty.
Everybody getting a fairly reasonable start, an even better one for Jason Martin, but unfortunately, as you mentioned, that cost him in no uncertain terms 15 seconds in race time.
Yeah, very close there between, I think that was Dane Purcell on board bike number 15 and the rider holding our onboard camera, but there was Jason Martin coming back at Brendan McIntyre. He knows he's got that 15-second jump start penalty, and he was trying to do everything he possibly could to try and maintain as much forward progress and limit the damage.
Well, the big common thread on board that Irving Vincent is, of course, the man known as Bo Beaton. He has been their common denominator throughout whatever bike it is that they've been riding in terms of setup, etc. And he's doing a fantastic job putting his best foot forward.
Well, the classic comment from Bo at the beginning of the year when he rode it first time in Ango, as we see Matty Fife go up the inside of Brendan McIntyre there. And there goes the race centre Aprilia sliding up the inside. And Matty Fife, no stranger to the Winton Motor Raceway circuit. He's done a lot of laps around here. Been great to see him back in the Pro Twins class.
Well, we have three categories of racing, as we've mentioned a couple of times. Just to confirm that, we have the Pro Twins, the Naked Bikes, and of course the Formula Xtreme C and D grade riders, all of part and parcel of this Australian Motorcycle News sponsored event.
Jason Martin just getting it all wrong there on the entry of the corner at the end of Ipone Straight, and who was right on the spot to take advantage? The vineyard manager from South Australia, from the Clare Valley, James Arnold, once again picking up some good support from Race Centre this weekend, and Darren Scriberis and the boys helping him out to try and get that Panigale sorted.
Yeah, James Arnold on board the BC Performance Little Red Grape RMGH Unitech Panigale, doing a fantastic job, and it's good to see him back on the track.
They make their way up over the Berwick Levers top straight. It is Matty Fife who's putting in a great performance, really starting to hound down fellow competitors. There was a replay of him going up the inside of Brendan McIntyre on board bike number 22. And here's Jason Martin just getting it a fraction wrong, and James Arnold, Johnny on the spot to go flying up the inside on board the Panigale.
Back to the action towards the front of the pack as the number 61 machine of Jason Martin, of course, has that 15-second penalty. And you can see Matthew Fife trying to get up into third place on the road as well as in the race. So this final lap, Brendan McIntyre, he's dropped off the pace a little bit on the Western Motorcycles Sydney Suzuki, and he's sitting back there in about 5th place.
Yeah, but he also knows that he doesn't have to beat Jason Martin on the road to take top points in the C and D grade class and extend that championship lead. Speaking of extending championship leads, that's exactly what Bo Beaton's going to do. He said earlier on this year, Lance, the bike's got so much torque it had pulled the bend out of a river, and he's blasting his way to a third victory and a perfect day on board the KH Equipment Irving Vincent.
Did a great job, and there's no doubt about that. The team will certainly be happy with his performances over not only this round but throughout 2015. Bo Beaton ahead of James Arnold, Matthew Fife, Brendan McIntyre, Dane Purcell. With a jump start penalty, Jason Martin finishes in 6th place.
Can't thank the team enough on the Irving Vincent Australian-made motorcycle. Like, what they're producing is just astronomical, and I can't thank them enough for putting me on the grid.
Huge thanks to the BC Performance team for their help getting the bike ready. Daz from Race Centre made some changes for that last race, and it felt great. And also to Unitech Building Services for their support this year.
Time to have a look at the points at the end of this 6th round. The Pro Twins class being led by Chris Keane on 332 points. Adrian Pierpoint leads the naked bikes with 426. When you combine the two classes, Bo Beaton, Chris Keane and Adrian Pierpoint are your top 3 runners. The Formula Xtreme C&D grade is being led by Brendan McIntyre, Jason Martin in 2nd and Michael Witchard rounding up the top 3. Well, that concludes our coverage here at Winton Motor Raceway of round 6 of the 2015 Swann Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship. On behalf of Phil Harlem and the entire team, we thank you for your company. Look forward to it again in early December at Sydney Motorsport Park for our twilight meeting.